Sorry.
Hi, Dominic. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Good. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, that's no problem. I'm just trying to get this to sit up straight because you're on my music rack right now.
I'm going to send out quick message, see if people will join real quick.
There we go.
How have you been?
It varies from month to month, but not too bad. Um, well, just kind of a lot of work, but a lot of the stuff that I was planning to do this year has obviously been canceled because of COVID.
Right.
And a lot of the competitions that I was planning on doing are postponed. So the applications are postponed. So there's no reason to record. So now I'm kind of shifting plans for the semester,
Right.
and that means finding a new kind of track, a new plan for what to do. And my teacher and I basically have decided to pivot to like learning a bunch of rep and just kind of filling gaps. There we go. That works better. Um, Filling gaps in our repertoire, or just kind of covering things that we haven't touched before, because um, it's my last year of coursework, so it's my last year of like official lessons. So we're filling gaps. We're gonna learn a lot of stuff that we haven't worked on together.
What are you planning?
Um, my main pieces right now are the Rachmaninoff Second Sonata, um, both of the nocturnes from Chopin Opus 62.
Love that.
Yeah, they're perfect. Um, Basiewicz, Second Sonata, um, female Polish composer from the 20th century. Super, super cool piece, which of course I stumbled upon because a recording was made by my favorite pianist, Zimmerman.
Yeah,
Um,
I've heard his recording of it.
yeah, it's fantastic. Have you heard the live recording?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay. The live recording is different and exciting, um, for many reasons. But those are some of the big pieces. I'm learning a sonata by a friend who's a composer, um, which is very difficult, actually. Um, but I figure that, while I'm at IU, I should try and do some world premieres of new music and just kind of get involved in that sort of thing. Um,
Yeah.
there is more. Chamber music, I'm playing Brahms' Second Violin Sonata for a class. I'm giving a chamber recital of Beethoven 8 and 9, eighth and ninth violin sonatas.
Heck yeah. Well,
Um,
let me make sure this is recording real quick.
yeah, sure.
Okay. Yeah. Keep talking.
Yeah. And then for the project pieces, I'm working on a handful of Scarlatti sonatas to kind of check that box off. And I might learn some of the Szymanowski preludes, other tiny odds and ends. I might try to bring my teacher first Brahms concerto. So I'm kind of digging into that. I'm playing Beethoven Third Piano Concerto. I'm playing second piano at the end of the month for a studio mate, and then I will perform it as the soloist in the spring for one of my concerto recitals for my doctorate. So yeah, it's kind of a mountain of rep.
Yeah.
Some etudes here and there, and maintaining maintaining older stuff like the Brahms Third Sonata and Scriabin 2 and 5, and uh, Chopin Third if I need it.
Yeah, those pieces are so good.
It's all good rep. Very lucky uh, as pianists to have such good rep to maintain. It just takes so many hours. You
Yeah,
need so
so
many hours
much.
at the instrument to actually just keep everything in line. Um, there was some advice given by a teacher, I think at Cincinnati, who would say, you should play through your old pieces like more or less every day, um, just
Mm.
to try and keep everything in your fingers. And so I'm not good or consistent about that, but sometimes I will just try and see if I can still play an old piece, play through
Yeah.
cadence of a concerto or something,
Yeah.
to see if it's still in the fingers. That's a whole skill set in and of itself, I think.
Mm. Well, once again, dude, I just let a lot of like Facebook, Twitter, and stuff like that people know.
Mhm.
Um, so one, yeah, I mean, just thanks for doing this, and I
Yeah,
know because like a lot of my like audience and like people that support me and listen to me have been, which I'm super grateful for, have been like really liking your music and your playing. So and I've
it's very
learned a
kind.
ton. Obviously, I've learned a ton from you. So I just wanted to kind of get you on and start with like what attracts you to music in general? Do you think?
Um, well, at this point, I mean, I really like the performing lifestyle. I like travel. I like hotels and planes and free food. Um, so that's pretty nice. I mean, I guess that's not really music in general, is it? It's a multifaceted. I think that music is pure and interesting arts because at least instrumental music, it doesn't tell you how to feel, and it doesn't tell you, the meaning a lot of the time. And what fascinates me is how different people derive meaning from the same text and from the same performance. Um,
Right.
it's thrilling to be able to kind of tell stories with an instrument for a living.
Mm.
Um, and the magic of that hasn't really worn off for me yet. Obviously, I have a very complicated relationship with music and with performing because when you do something for so long and then you decide to make it your livelihood, um, you go through a lot of emotions and you go through a lot of experiences, both good and bad. So my relationship with music is ever changing, but I think I'm probably kind of addicted to it. Um, and to try and consider doing something else, I think would be kind of unfeasible. Um,
Hmm.
at this point, I think I'm in too deep, but
Yeah.
um, I don't think I could really do anything else.
No. No. That's a really interesting answer. I was thinking like, I know we've talked before about when you came into undergrad, but how did you get started with piano?
Started like the very, very beginning.
Yeah.
Um, I started playing by ear
Right.
at the age of 3. So something in the DNA is how I got started. Really,
Mm.
I started picking out melodies and performing by ear before I took lessons, and I started lessons at the age of 4. So really, really just something in the DNA. That is the part that you would call talent. My family's not very musical,
Right.
um, and none of my immediate relatives are professional musicians. But my sisters were in marching band, and for me to hear those melodies was enough for me to try and mess around with the organ that we had in our home when I was growing up.
Did you have a piano or just an organ?
Originally, it was just an organ, but after a few years of lessons, I think my then teacher insisted that we get a piano so that I could start building, um, the actual finger strength it takes to play a real piano versus an electric organ. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, didn't start off with a real piano. And I remember when I did get a real piano, my teacher forbade me from using the pedal for years.
Why?
which probably a good thing. Um, but I surprise myself that I exercise that self-restraint. I know that my students do not listen to me when I say use less pedal, so
Yeah, I don't think I listen to myself when I say that either.
we use less pedal. Yeah, it's
Oh my.
I try so hard not to let it turn into like a security blanket with my students and with my own playing. But
Definitely.
it's it's tempting.
It happens to me a lot, and Dr. Gainsford's like, no, no,
Yeah,
no.
don't do that. Yeah, pedaling is it's such a whole thing. I mean, everybody has opinions about it.
Yeah, I mean, what's it like? So this is your second year, right, as a doctor, or it's third year?
Third,
Third year. So
yeah,
it said it's your last year of coursework, right? But are you
hmm
still you're still giving recitals, right? As well?
yeah, yeah. Um,
How many more do you
uh,
have?
five.
Okay,
Uh, three of them will get knocked out this school year
good. Okay, that's awesome. Let me know when the lives are, like when the live streams are, because I'd love to watch.
because of COVID.
Right.
Because we can't have audiences there, so the school is providing a streaming service. So actually, we don't have to pay third parties anymore, which is, I guess, one of the upsides. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but November 15 is the first scheduled one that's coming up, and that would be Beethoven Eighth and Ninth Violin Sonatas with this
Okay, I'm gonna
brilliant
write that down.
violinist named Elena. And we were going to play a violin recital last April, but obviously it got canceled.
Right.
So this is the revenge tour, if you will, and I'll check this off. And I'm trying to convince her quartet to play with me in the spring, the
Yeah.
Brahms quintet, and something else, so that will satisfy both of my chamber requirements. And then I'll just play whatever concertos in my fingers, and that'll satisfy the concerto requirements. And then the last two that I'll have left will be my lecture and my final solo.
Mm.
And that works perfectly because in the fourth year, when I'm taking my exams and writing my paper, I will more than likely use the notes in the lecture generated from preparing for my lecture recital as the seeds of my document, my paper. So that'll be a thing, and you can't do your final until your exams are done. So it's kind of that's the plan is to finish in 4 years.
Right. And so yeah, I mean, how are things like how do you approach things differently now, do you think, than when you first like started undergrad in terms of practicing? And in terms of piano, I guess, as well.
Well, when I started my undergrad, I knew nothing and had to be rebuilt from the ground up. And Reed will probably tell you that. I mean, when I came to Dr. Gainsford, I was playing all the hard rep, like Chopin ballades, Liszt etudes, Rachmaninoff second concerto, which I played in high school.
Right.
Um, just the first movement. I lacked the stamina to continue, but
Yeah.
he put a hard stop to all of that and made me learn like two-part inventions and
Mm.
some Haydn sonatas, if I recall correctly, and other easier rep. But he was very insistent that I needed to establish um, a world class level of playing for the easier rep, so that I could slowly introduce the harder rep. And I remember he kind of threw me a bone and let me play one of the Liszt Paganini etudes my freshman year, because he could tell, I think, that I wanted to go back to playing, hard and fast. um, and so he allowed me to learn one of those. But I remember the first 2 years of my undergrad, it was such a revolution in practice because in high school, I had no idea how to practice. The extent of my technical and practice kind of training and expertise was, oh, just try it slow and try not to be tense, which is obviously too vague
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and Reed, on the other hand, was very specific. And we talked about everything our first 2 years, from how to approach the key to what kind of sound to listen to how to move, how to release tension in between notes. We really did everything together. It was a lot of rebuilding. Um, and the playing on my sophomore recital, which you can find on my SoundCloud, is completely unrecognizable from the way I played when I was in high school. So just 2 years with him totally changed the way that I practiced. I didn't even know about rhythms and accents, which is perhaps the most basic form of drilling, when I was in high school, until I studied with Reed, and he gave me I think I have it up here somewhere, the complete effective guide to
Yes,
practicing.
that's right. That's
I,
right. Yes.
I still use it.
Yes, that
So,
it's so good.
yeah, that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
learning to approach music in a way where you're not just, performing while you're practicing and then hoping for the best.
Right.
So he not only taught me how to practice better, but how to learn faster and how to learn more solidly. And we then started to talk about performance anxiety and how to handle nerves, and really just going from being an amateur to a professional. Um, so I
Well,
haven't really stopped practicing that way.
yeah.
Um, and actually, I can probably show you. I have this little checklist on my music rack. Can you see that?
Yeah, what does it say?
These three post-it notes are a checklist of things I want to understand about any given phrase or passage, and it comes from an article by Professor Cohen, who in the Clavier Companion, and Professor Cohen is on my committee, and he's a brilliant pianist and teacher, and he has a very strong studio. And he wrote an article or did an interview basically about practicing, um, and said that to know the score is not enough. And so this cheat provided this checklist, and so I wrote it all down and put it on my music rack to hold myself accountable. And it's like the things you should know about any given passage. You should know fingering, your hand position, your wrist position, your arm position, dynamics, voicing, balance, phrasing, direction, sound, color, character, pedal, preparation of motion, articulation, connection of sounds, transition from note to note, rhythm, pulse, style, context, emotion, like going through this list of everything so that you have such a vivid plan and experience of how to get through any phrase that you stand the best chance of executing exactly what you want.
Right. So it's very
Um,
intentional.
yeah, it's practicing with lots of intention. And it kind of covers all the bases. You know that Reed talks a lot about the balance of the head, the heart, and the hands. So your emotions, your technique, and your knowledge of the score. Um, how to combine all of these into a practice method that works. And I'm a bit of an obsessor when I practice, and a little bit neurotic as someone who prepares. So I have to spend a lot of time doing stuff like this to feel comfortable. But the more specific your practice, the more high quality it is, and
Mm.
actually, the faster you learn. So Reed taught me how to practice. He did.
Yeah, that's
Um,
something that we've been working on still because I'm still having to learn that.
it's a lifelong process.
Yeah, it is. Did you see in the chat? So Manuel's here, Father Anderson is here, and Kaisar's here
Oh,
as well. They're all saying
oh,
hi.
hi guys. It is an FSU reunion, isn't it?
It
Oh, that's
is.
great. I wasn't looking at that.
Yeah, they're all saying hi.
Oh,
I at the end I want to open up a couple so I have I think is 45 minutes cool with you if we end at
yeah, that's fine.
3:25?
Yeah, that's
I was
totally
gonna
fine.
open up questions at the end, and
Oh
see if
yeah,
anybody
that's
wants
cool.
to ask you questions because I know obviously you have a lot to offer. So yeah, Gainsford Studio reunion. There we are.
I love that.
Well, so Dominic, you're playing currently? Are you playing in the Chopin national competition, or did it end?
No,
Or
that's over.
that's
I made it to semifinals, and that was it. I
Yeah.
didn't play the concerto orchestra, so that's done.
How did that go? What was that like?
So it's funny. Yesterday I spoke with their executive director on the phone because I'm going to be featured in a one of the salon concert series that they're doing in quarantine next
Awesome.
at the end of this week, and I will be promoting it and I will be answering her questions and writing. It's like a written and Zoom interview, and then clips from the competition.
Let me send that my way if you want. I can promote it for you as
Yeah,
well.
sure. I appreciate it.
Of
So the
course.
Chopin composition, um, I was not ready for the Chopin competition, and I
No.
will freely admit that. I had tried to do too much. I was juggling 7 hours of rep in the
Mm,
spring.
mm.
Um, I was supposed to play a professional violin recital with a friend, and we were going to play like Strauss and Szymanowski, very hard pieces. I had my own chamber recital with that other violinist, the one who I'm playing with in November, and so I was playing Beethoven, Kreutzer, and Brahms Violin Sonata, the first one. And then I had my own solo program of Scriabin 2 and 5 and Brahms 3, which is like 70 minutes.
Wow.
And then I had Beethoven Third Concerto for a competition. I had Rachmaninoff First and Second Concerto, which I both played with professional orchestra last semester, 1 week apart. And then I had on top of that over an hour and a half of Chopin, you know, for excuse me, three solo rounds in the first concerto and the first concerto. Um, it was too much.
Mm.
I was not playing my best in that competition, and I was honestly surprised that I made it as far as I did. Some of those pieces, and this is something you should never, ever, ever do. Some of those pieces had never been played in public when I played them in the competition, and I like to perform anything 5 times before I play it for like an important audience in public because you kind of just it's like bowling with bumpers on. you know, you have to
Yeah.
kind of you have to hit the sides a few times in front of people, and so you play like a house concert, or you play for a nursing home, or I guess you used to before COVID. Um, but you try to find where the weak spots are, and the more times you play it in public, the more you find the weak spots. And
Mm.
I survived, and I made it away with some money, but if I were to take clips from that competition and put them on my social media, I have to be very choosy about where I get them because I just wasn't really happy with a lot of it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I had insane nerves in the first round, even though those pieces were like probably in the best shape. I felt like I played the worst. Um, some of the stuff that I had never played went really well, and some of the stuff that I'd known super well did not go really well. I mean, it was such an experience, but I will say that I learned a lot. I learned a lot about personal boundaries when it comes to knowing how much stuff I can actually take on. And this semester, I was much more methodical with how long do I need to know this piece and when do I need to start performing it before I actually go to record it, before I go to submit it for competition. I was much more careful and kind of far-sighted
Mm.
when it comes to preparing for these kinds of major events so that I don't play badly in front of important panels. Um,
Mm.
and also another experience that I learned at that competition, which I'd not really had before, in as vivid a way, is getting on stage and playing a program and then leaving the stage and starting to practice for the next round. And so you just you have to leave all that stuff behind. And then you go
Mm.
back to the stage and you play your second program. And then when you leave the stage, you put all that out of your head and start practicing for the next round. So because you have to wait for results, right? So you don't know. It's really like every other day you're on the same stage playing different music. And so you have to be prepared as if you could get the news and wake up the next morning and play. And that's how it was for me because I was on the first day. So it was very much like that. And that was an interesting experience. And I remember doing a lot of score studying in my host's car. um, just trying to hold everything together. But if I had to do it all again, um, I would have had everything ready for that entire competition the summer before, and I didn't. The concerto I
When
pulled back in like 3 weeks.
when was it?
It was in March. Oh, you kind of froze there for a second.
It was in March.
Yeah.
Sorry, you froze for a while.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Technological
No,
mishap.
it's
Yeah,
okay.
it was in March. So I would have liked to have had everything completely memorized and under my fingers for at least 6 months. And then I would just played it on a bunch of recitals. But the fact of the matter was I was playing other rep on recitals, and I performed my solo program of Brahms 3 with Scriabin 2 and 5 as bookends. I performed that about 5 times in public, and so my solo recital, and the recording is on YouTube, went pretty well. And so I learned a lot. I'm glad that I had the experience of behaving foolishly as I did. Um, and next time I'll do better. You
I mean,
know,
it's
try to juggle a
all
lot.
a learning process.
It is a learning process, yeah. And I am admittedly somewhat of a late bloomer for the leagues that I try to compete in. Um, this is the first time I did like a multiple round competition like that and made it as far as I did.
Well,
Um,
congrats again.
Thank you. So, next time I'll do better and I'll be wiser about getting stuff ready in time, and I won't ever play Chopin 10, Opus 10 number 2 in public again. And that's all there
That
is to
piece
it.
is so challenging. It's so tough. It's so
It is
tough.
tough.
I would not
No, I
play that.
really kind of thought I had it, but those pieces when you're so confident you have them, and then like if the piano is just slightly too heavy, then your arm is just like in pain the whole time. And yeah, I learned my lesson. Suffice to
That
say,
piece is
I learned
brutal.
my
It's
lesson.
brutal.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a whole interesting thing. Competitions are also different. But I mean, at the competition itself, I had a very wonderful experience as far as like the staff were amazing, and the facilities that we got to use were amazing, and my host family was just wonderful. And I felt very lucky despite not feeling like I was really playing my best um, to be there. So 10 out of 10, if you're all thinking about going to the next one in 5 years, absolutely do it. It's a wonderfully run organization. And I had performed 2 recitals for them before because I met the executive director after winning MTNA, the national finals.
right. When
Yeah.
was that? What year?
Spring of 19, I think.
What did you? Do you remember what you played for that?
Yes. Scriabin Second Sonata, Chopin Third Sonata, and Prokofiev 7.
Hmm.
Yeah, so you may notice a theme of pieces being recycled
Yeah.
for years and years and years. That is something that I think you have to do if you're doing major competitions. It used to be that I would like prepare a program, play it, and drop it. Prepare a program, play it, and drop it. But now it's more like this elided thing where pieces are phasing in and out. And so if I have a new piece on the recital, maybe it's bookended by 2 much more familiar pieces to kind of put my nerves at ease.
Hmm.
And I always try to start with something slow so that I can just kind of settle into the space and into the instrument while my nerves are at their worst before I have to play the hardest stuff. So that's another skill I learned from doing a lot of competing.
Hmm. That's so interesting that you say that because like I've had that problem with starting in fast pieces. Just like when I'm starting a program, I'm super nervous and I'm just like, oh
Hmm.
no, it's so
Yeah,
difficult.
no. And I play
It's so
faster
challenging.
when I'm nervous, so I now just refuse to do it.
Yeah, no, I go faster when I'm nervous too. So I
Yeah,
compress. Everything compresses.
exactly. Yeah. Now, pulse is a tricky thing, especially when your perception of time is altered by adrenaline. One of the good ways I found of getting around that is listening to your pieces while running,
Mm.
because your heart rate is up and your perception of time is a little slower. when your heart rate is that fast. And so it kind of simulates. I've had this feeling when I'm running where I'm like, this feels really slow. And it's just because my heart is going really fast.
Right.
And same thing when I was playing with orchestra. I remember we were playing the last movement and I had really settled into a groove with the conductor, but I was feeling like this is really slow, but I'm not going to rush it. And then I listened to the recording and I'm like, no, it was really actually fast. And someone asked me after the concert, how do you play the third movement that quickly? And I said, it feels really slow
Right.
when I'm up there because there's so much adrenaline. So yeah, perception is just such a weird thing when you're on stage.
Yeah, things feel so weird on stage because it's like I don't know, and I want to see what you think, but like what I hear from myself is a lot different than what the audience actually hears.
Yeah, one of the best things I did last year is I just recorded myself like every day.
Right.
Even down to the phrase level, just recording myself all the time. And I feel like my greatest accomplishment of last year was bringing together the perception of what I think I hear with what is actually coming out of the instrument. So now what I perceive as coming out of the piano is generally what's actually happening, and the only way that I could do that was to actually just record constantly.
Okay.
And
Thank
I
you for
will
that.
say it didn't make me any less afraid, or yeah, it didn't make me any less afraid of recording. I still absolutely am terrified of recording anything, but I now know that it's not really as much of a game of chance. And that if I think it was a good take, it probably was. Um, and I have
Right.
fewer of those disconnects because I remember in even in undergrad, I used to perform and kind of not really know what the recording was going to sound like.
Mm. Yeah, that's it's so interesting too because like the thing that you said about like adrenaline running through your body and that affecting the pulse that resonates with me because like I get so nervous when I perform,
Yeah,
and
same.
it it throws everything off that like you've practiced and you feel centered, you feel grounded when you're practicing, but when you get on stage, it's completely different.
Yeah, which is why I insist on performance as practice, which is you do five performances of your whole program for
Right.
people because the only way to I mean, so we're paid to be uncomfortable, right? I
It,
mean,
it,
that it's a somewhat painful existence, being a performer and subjecting things that you hold intensely personal and close to your heart, you subject them to public judgment. And and when you're on stage, you're uncomfortable because it's kind of a weird thing, being in front of people and reciting something is pressure. It's a pressurized situation, but we're paid to do that. And I mean, I'm not speaking about this issue as if I figured it out because I haven't, but I do try to accept that fact that it's part of the job to kind of suffer through performance anxiety. It's kind of the job.
yeah,
So I
and
don't
I
really.
think too, like, yeah.
You were
No, I
saying,
mean, I think you could apply that to like anything really with working out, like you're being uncomfortable for growth, and it's kind of the same idea.
yeah, working out I enjoy more,
You know what?
but I'm too
Honestly,
scared to go to the gym during this pandemic, unfortunately. So
yeah, I've been working out all at home. Um, so I found some good workouts. If you want, I can send some to you. The stuff that
yeah, sure.
I've just found helpful.
I feel like
But
we're getting off task.
we're definitely getting off that.
Yeah.
So I was gonna ask you to before we take questions in like 4 minutes. I
Hmm.
was gonna ask, what's your day like now, and like just in general for music and for piano.
I wake up super late. and I go to
Yeah.
bed super late. I do most of my non-piano work, like if I have to do writing or I have to do analysis for my classes and stuff, I do that all like after midnight. Um, it's odd. I feel like I have more time now that we're all in quarantine because I don't have to actually go places and do stuff. Because I'm very fortunate. I have a piano at home,
Right.
and that is an intense privilege. And over quarantine, I learned how to tune, so now I don't really have to worry about awful, uh, pitches that are fallen. Although right now the whole thing is out of whack because we're transitioning from AC to heat in Indiana
Mm.
this time of year, so it's all out of whack, and I'll have to reset the whole thing. Um, some of the octaves and tenths are just nightmarish. But I wake up late. Depending on when, I'll probably uh, practice, and I teach virtually all times of day. I try not to schedule them all too close to each other so that I can have breaks where I'll usually like practice for an hour and then teach another lesson and then practice for an hour. I like to divide my sessions that way. Um, I spend more time cooking now that we're in a quarantine. Yeah, that's what I stress bought in the beginning of the quarantine. I bought like better cooking supplies, like a good pan and a blender and stuff, good knife, chef's knife. Um, so yeah, I don't really do that much. I've embraced the hermitage of it all. And I do so much more work at my computer now because I serve as the assistant coordinator for secondary piano here. So I have to do a lot of computer stuff. So I bought a second monitor. It's much easier for me to like task manage that way with two screens. So a typical day is just probably teaching, two to anywhere between 2 to 4 hours. Practicing anywhere from 3 to 6 hours. Um, and I don't really have that much homework, which is nice. Um, and I only receive people about once a week, kind of the same small
Right.
group of friends.
Yeah. It's
Um,
tough too with quarantine.
yeah. No, I take great comfort in routine.
Yeah, same. Same here.
And so to be able to kind of do everything at home um, is nice. And I thought it would be a lot harder to focus practicing at home, but I think now that I'm kind of in the groove, it's all right because like my kitchen is like right over there, so there is there is temptation to just get up and stop practicing. But um, if I can set myself a routine, a really specific routine, and I do this when I practice, like I set timers and stuff, so that I force myself to take breaks, and I force myself to only practice for so much time, and reward myself with like a Kit Kat bar. Very simple things.
I love Kit Kats. Yeah.
Yeah, same. No, but the more specific and predictable the routine, the better when it comes to keeping everything in order.
Right.
One of the most interesting things that I've started doing is because I have so much rep to juggle, I don't practice the same thing every day. I kind of cycle and practice things basically every other day so that they have time to kind of marinate. And so that I'm not running the risk of like just kind of hitting a wall technically and then driving myself crazy on the same piece of music. That's one thing I've started doing that's been an interesting development in the way I practice.
Mm. Yeah. I wanted to open it up for questions for anybody that has questions for Dominic in the chat, just to leave them there, and then he can take them and answer them. This has been really good. This has been a great conversation, and I
I'm
really
glad.
appreciate it. Yeah, no, I really appreciate you doing this, because I know I've gotten a ton out of this, and I know my audiences as well. Yeah, I just really love your playing, honestly, man. Like I've been listening
Thank you.
a lot, and yeah, I really like it.
It's very kind.
Yeah, of course, of course.
Hopefully there will be. I mean, everything got moved back. I was going to be recording this month for competitions and stuff, but they all got pushed. So um, I would expect in. Do I lift?
Tim.
Not anymore, Tim. Not
Hi,
anymore,
Tim.
because I'm scared to go to the gym because it's filled with people that are not careful about social distancing and sanitizing stuff. So I only lift myself. I
Manuel
just
just asked you a question too.
Yeah, okay, Manuel says, what were the biggest adjustments from FSU to IU? Well, the adjustments were surprisingly small because they're both big state schools. And so I was kind of comfortable with that. I will say, I feel like finding a practice room is a lot harder at IU. But, you know, if you're going as a graduate student, you have an office as an associate instructor. So it's a lot easier for you to find a piano than it is for the general uh, public. The community is obviously larger, so you're not going to know as many. I feel like the pianists are pretty tight knit at Florida State because there really aren't that many, and your studios feel closer. But at IU, it's, you know, your circle of friends is a bit more um, random, and it's, you know, it's not always the people that are in your studio, and you have to kind of be more comfortable with seeing a lot of the same people and not knowing who they are. Uh, One thing I will say is there are a ton of opportunities at IU to perform, to teach, to watch, you know, amazing classes and lectures. You have to be more proactive about reaching out and going to those things than I did at FSU,
Mm.
uh, where it was all kind of a little bit easier to keep track of because here there are so many amazing things going on that you can easily miss them. And it's a concentrated effort, I feel, to stay on top of enjoying what's around you, you know, to go to the opera and to watch these workshops and to attend, you know, master classes and lectures. The other thing about adjusting to IU is the pianos are really bad, and you should enjoy your time at FSU because the pianos are much better there.
Hmm.
Yeah, but
Interesting.
yeah, that and the snow. I mean,
Yeah, the snow.
it's kind of weird. Yeah, but I like the snow.
Yeah.
I mean, I lived in Florida my whole life, so
Yeah, that's true. I was looking at your bio and it says you're from it says you're from hi Noah, hi Manuel, hi Kaiser, hi everyone, thanks for joining. But it says you're from Beverly Hills, Florida, and I was laughing about that.
yeah. I
I
bet
was
you
like
don't know where
Beverly
that is
Hills.
because it's, you know, it's like the hierarchy of
No, I don't.
needs. And when people say, "Oh, you're from Florida, where?" You start big and work smaller. So I say, "Oh, Central Florida. Okay, where? Do you know where Gainesville is? Yeah. Do you know where Ocala is?" And that's usually the breaking point. Um,
Yeah.
I'll be like near Ocala or near Gainesville or just more broadly central. But yeah, I lived there my whole life, and then yeah, it is horse country. I lived there my whole life, and then went to school in Tally, and then I've lived in Indiana since. So
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I have to go because I have to teach in 15 minutes, but thank you again, Dominic. Thank you so
of
much.
course,
Is
thank
it
you.
okay? Yeah, of course, of course. I have a video camera recording here. Is it okay if I share this? It's gonna ask me like if I want to share it to my IGTV. Is that cool with you?
Mm. Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, perfect. Thank you,
By all
man.
means.
All right,
Thank
see you,
you.
Dominic.
Have a
Thanks
good.
again.
Yeah, later.
All right, see ya.